Alright, so here's where I test my builds and stuff, and I got this dash.
I don't see any Tarnished Nightmare in here.
Quiet.
Alright,
and if you come out this door, you see...
wait, no. What's that sound?
Don't worry about it.
What do you mean don't worry about it? It's coming from right in here.
Don't worry about it.
Surely there's nothing unordinary. What? What? Why?
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, bro.
How are you legally allowed to have this?
Don't worry about it, bro.
Oh my god! Why? It actually crashed.
Today, I'm going to be fulfilling my role as an ESO content creator and talking about Update 42, aka the Gold Road DLC. This is the grand big yearly chapter release that we get every single year, and this year ZeniMax has decided to give us Spellcrafting, aka Scribing, and we're going to be talking about that in this video as well. We're past the 5-week mark in terms of patch notes, so that means everything that I will be covering in this video is going to go live on June 3rd for PCs and June 18th for consoles. There's a lot coming with this new update, and I'm not going to be covering literally every single detail, but I am going to be covering the important stuff, the stuff I think is very important to talk about, and I do have a Google Doc in front of me with these important items, and also some things I would like to complain about in typical ESO content creator fashion. Let's get started. To begin, let's talk about the class changes in Update 42. There were virtually no class changes made at all in Update 42, so unfortunately that means Magsork is borderline immortal still, with Hardened Ward, Nightblade is still very obnoxious from stealth, and Necro is still the worst class in the game. I do want to touch on one of the passive changes that Sorcerer got, and that is to its Blood Magic passive. On the live server currently, whenever you deal damage with a Dark Magic ability, you heal. Now this is getting changed, so whenever you cast a Dark Magic ability, you heal. This kind of hurts users that use Crystal Weapon like me, because you don't have as much offensive healing anymore, so you kind of have to play a little bit more defensive. But this does have the added benefit of turning Dark Deal into a burst heal, because you get 2 ticks of healing with it now. So I guess Sorcerer's got a little bit of a buff here. Oh, and also, Warden is getting a unique 5% damage bonus, if you're using Netch, because, it's Warden, I guess. Also, Werewolf is getting a pretty interesting change. Its light and heavy attacks no longer deal physical damage, but rather bleed damage, so that means you can proc the bleed status effect off your light and heavy attacks. They're also slightly changing the functionality of Roar. This is Werewolf's Fear ability, and now whenever you attempt to fear someone, you will also apply the Terrified debuff to them. This Terrified debuff helps them roleplay a little bit better, and also, this is now how you get the bonus damage from your spammable ability, Piercing Howl, so you need to have them terrified in order to do extra damage to them. Next, let's talk about a weird little thing that's been in the game for quite a while now and has heavily contributed to the tank meta, and that is percent damage mitigation stacking. Apparently, there are some passives that are additive rather than multiplicative, meaning you add the percents together instead of them multiplying off of each other, because when they're multiplying off of each other, you start to get diminishing returns the more of them that you stack. But with some of these passives, that wasn't the case, so people were getting way more resistance than they realistically should have been getting. So overall, people are going to be probably taking more damage next patch, which is awesome. I don't know exactly how much, but from what I've heard, it's around like maybe 5%, which is awesome because that means there will be way less unkillable God Mode 1vx builds running around because they will be taking more damage. So, you know, that's an awesome change. Next, let's talk about a couple of other small changes, and then we'll go into scribing. The first change is to the inbox system in this game. Your mail is now going to expire around after 7 days, so for people like me that stash all of their rewards or the worthy things in their inbox and never touch it until like 15 days after they get it, that's going to be a problem because I'm going to lose out on a lot of rewards, which means I'm going to have to be a little bit more proactive in claiming the things that are in my mail. So if you have something that you just keep in your mail, or you're lazy like me and you don't like to check your inbox, be sure to start getting on top of that when Gold Road comes out. The next small noteworthy change is to Rush of Agony. Now, if you've been in Cyrodiil at all and you've had the misfortune of running into a ball group, you know how bad the ping pong from this set can be once it's stacked a bunch of times. They're changing that, so now that's less likely to happen because they're adding a big delay on the pull that is attached to this set, so you have more time to get away. As a result, though, they're increasing the range that this can pull people from, but it shouldn't be a big problem if you have pretty good expedition sources or something like Streak, or, you know, the new vault ability that we'll talk about here in a minute. So, you know, is a pretty decent change. Now let's talk about scribing. So this is the big feature that's coming with Update 42, and this basically allows you to customize a certain certain set of skills. I've spent countless hours goofing off with this new system on the PTS, trying out different spells, seeing how they function, seeing if I can fill in some of the gaps within my builds with these spells, and I can say that some of these spells are deceptively powerful, and some of these spells are incredibly powerful, and then some of them are just borderline useless because they're mostly impractical on most builds and in most situations. But we'll go over each of the skills. I'll talk about how I used them, how I tested with them, and whether I like the skill or not, and if I see it being very useful or not. And since scribing is this whole new in-depth system, I'm not going to spend 15 minutes covering how to unlock it and how the grind is going to look. I'm going to put a link in the description to a video that I watched from Ninja Pools that explains it pretty well, so that way we can just go and do all the fun stuff. So yeah, go check that out if you want to learn how to unlock scribing and stuff. So to begin, I just want to clarify that I'm going to be focusing on each of these skills through a PvP focused lens. PvE, I've used them in PvE. Each of these skills works fine. It's just the atmosphere and the kind of combat that you're doing in PvP is completely different, and that's also the kind of content I enjoy doing the most. So that is what I'm going to be focusing on when I'm talking about these skills, and that's the kind of lens that I have when I'm looking at these skills and how useful they actually are. So to start, we're actually going to begin with the PvP skill that they've given us called Trample. This skill is a funny idea in concept, but in execution, this skill is an actual meme, okay? It has a 1.5 second cast time, and if you manage to get this off without getting interrupted, you call forth your mount, and he runs forward in a straight line. The mount is incredibly slow, so it's incredibly easy to dodge, and I don't ever see myself using this skill because on top of that, your character, wherever he's facing, is where it's going to go. So even if you have the camera pointed in one direction, if your character's pointed in another, it's just going to go where the character's pointed and not where the camera's pointed. So good luck hitting anything with this. The only funny thing about this skill is that you can line it up pretty easily on a ganker and get some pretty funny combos off with it, but unfortunately, even if you go for damage with this thing, it does no damage. Your spammable on Nightblade does more damage than this does, other than its meme factor, this skill is useless. The next skill that we're going to talk about is the Torchbearer skill. This is the Fighter's Guild skill that you get. Basically, you pull out a torch and you swing it 3 times in front of you. Unfortunately, you go into walking speed while you're swinging this torch. If you did not have to worry about the walking speed penalty while casting this ability, it would be a great spammable to have because it functions very similarly to jabs and has a little bit more damage than them if you build for damage with this thing. But unfortunately, the fact that you go into walking speed while casting this makes it incredibly hard to use and line up on anyone with a brain, so it's not a very good skill. The next skill we're going to be talking about is Traveling Knife. This skill is not worth using ever, okay? It is a projectile with dual wield, okay? Sure, you can make it a pull or you can turn it into a stun, but even then, you're doing damage with dual wield, okay? This skill, no, don't use it. So the next skill that we're going to talk about is Vault. This is the bow skill, and this skill used to be pretty good. All it needed was a ramping cost, but ZeniMax decided to give it ramping cost and remove the vertical movement of this skill. So now you just go horizontally with it. So this becomes a problem when you're on an inclined surface, like a small hill, or trying to go up some stairs, and then you use this to try and get away from someone, but you don't move anywhere, and then you just take all the damage and die. It's just a really clunky skill, and it's quite hard to use now. The next skill that we're going to be talking about is called Wield Soul. This is basically Traveling Knife, but where it should actually be. This is a great skill to use to fill in some gaps on your build if you need to, but it's not going to be like a required thing on any build, but you can definitely scribe your way to success with this specific skill if you absolutely need to fill in something on your build that you don't have, because this has amazing utility attached to it. The next skill we're going to talk about is Shield Throw. Basically, you yeet your shield at your target like Captain America, and, once you do that, you can scribe it to do many different things. The utility of this skill is quite good if you're using Sword and Board, and I do quite like it because of how goofy it is and how much utility it has. Other than that, though, it's another ranged attack on a melee thing, so it's still kind of weird, but you can definitely find a use for it if you're using a Sword and Board. The next skill that we're going to be talking about is one of my personal favorites, and it's called Smash. This is the two-handed skill, and basically what you do is you stick your two-handed into the ground, and then you swing it upwards, and then you do an AoE of whatever you scribe it to do. This skill knows what it wants to do, and then it proceeds to do it very well. There are no complaints I have with this skill. It's incredibly well-rounded, and it can do a lot of things very well for you, and I really do like this skill a lot. The next skill we're going to be talking about is called Menders Menders Bond. As you can probably tell, this is from the Restoration Staff skill line, and if it's anything like all of the other restoration spells in this game, it is incredibly powerful and quite broken. This is definitely not going to be exploited and abused when it comes out, because you definitely can't stack this with all of your teammates and start to stack an insane amount of recovery, healing, and ultimate generation. Nope, that is definitely not something you can do with this spell, and it is definitely not going to get out of hand once you start putting it in small scale groups, and especially in ball groups. Nope, very balanced skill, very balanced. The next skill that we're going to be talking about is apparently pronounced Ulfsilds Contingency. This is the Mage's Guild ability, and basically how this works is, well, whenever you cast an ability, this also casts alongside it. It's a very interesting skill, and it's going to be very popular on a lot of builds because of the utility that it has. You can use this to easily line up burst and also line up some heals if you want. This skill is incredibly powerful, and it's just a great delayed ability of whatever you want it to do. It's an amazing ability, and you definitely want to get this first once Scribing comes out. The next ability that we're going to be talking about is called Soul Burst. This is the other soul magic ability, and this ability is awesome. Basically, you unleash your soul, and then you do this big ol' AoE around you, and you can scribe however you want this ability to function, as a burst heal, as a damage, as a pull, whatever. This skill has you covered. This skill has so much utility attached to it that it's going to be an incredibly popular option on a lot of builds, and I can also see myself squeezing this in on a lot of my builds as well because of the amount of utility that this skill provides. It's an amazing skill, and it's also like the first one you unlock, so that makes it even better. And I saved the best ability for last. The last ability we're going to be talking about is called Elemental Explosion. Now, if you've looked at this on the PTS, you're like, this skill is trash for PvP because, well, it has a 2-second cast time, and, well, good luck getting 2-second cast time off anywhere near anyone at any given point. And also, while you're casting this, you're also set to walking speed. And, well, yeah, this ability by itself is nothing too special and nothing to really write home about. But I personally love the absurdity that comes from this ability once you start to read in between the lines on how this ability can actually be used. Remember our two friends, Ulfsilds Contingency and Soul Burst? Yeah, well, you can actually time those up to go off at the exact same time as this ability does. And did I mention this ability has a higher tooltip than most ultimates in the game? The only thing that beats it out is Specbo has a higher tooltip. Yeah. Alright, let's put this on a bomber, for instance. Let's also time up Proxy Debt with those 3 abilities. Now we have 4 delayed burst abilities going off at the exact same time. And let's put Dark Convergence into the mix because this is a ground AoE with 10 meters, okay? Yeah, now anyone trying to get away from us won't be able to because they'll get pulled into the vortex of skills that are currently going off. Bombing is going to be one of the most fun things to do next patch, and it's going to be so incredibly easy with these new skills because of how large the AoE on each of these is. And then, like I said, you put convergence on it, people aren't getting away from the amount of things that are about to hit their forehead. Bombing may become meta next patch. You don't even need to be on a dedicated bombing spec in order to make this skill effective. All you gotta do is find some source of CC immunity and you're good to go, and then time it up with a couple of other delayed bursts, like I said, our friends Ulfsilds Contingency and Soul Burst, and well, you have a very good build on your hands that can deal with a large amount of players. Basically, all you gotta do is find a way to navigate around that 2-second cast time, and you have one of the best abilities in the game. And yeah, those are all of the scribing skills that we have access to upon the launch of the Gold Road DLC. I think what's going to end up happening, though, is that everyone's going to come to the conclusion that one specific spell's type of setup is the best. So, like, everyone's going to run the same focus, signature, and affix script on each and every single spell because it's just objectively the best thing to use. But I am interested to see how this is going to shape and affect PvP going into the future. To round out this video, let's go into our favorite segment about every single new update, the brand new item sets. All right, there are 2 new mythic items that are kind of worth talking about. I'll go over them really quickly here. The first one is called the Saint and the Seducer. This is a neck piece that basically is Kind Marchers and Daedric Trickery. It's a pretty straightforward concept and one that well, you can probably find a use for on some builds somewhere. And the second one is called Rourke and Steam Guards. Basically, whenever you block, you gain 99% damage mitigation for 0.5 seconds. So yeah, if you wanted left-handers, but blocking, I guess this is it. We have a couple of other noteworthy sets, and I'll try and go over them really quickly so we can get to the one that I really want to talk about. So the first one is an Overland set. It's medium. It's called Macabre Vintage. We figured out where Plague Break went with this one. Basically, this is PvE Plague Break, and it does bleed damage. I just want the original Plague Break back. I don't know why they have to keep flip-flopping this around. Just give me back the original Plague Break, please. Daggum. And if you're wondering, yes, you can bomb people with this in the Imperial City if they're close enough to the ads. The next interesting set is a crafted one. This is called Therker's Strike. Basically, whenever you deal damage with a fully charged heavy attack, you gain Major Berserk. You may not see the value in this, but I play a lot of gank builds, and I can definitely see the value in a set like this. The last set I'm going to talk about before we get to the fun set is called Threads of War. This is yet another crafted set, and basically your light and fully charged heavy attacks gain 100% status effect chance. Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. If you light attack someone and you're using swords or something, you'll always be proccing Sundered. If you have like a lightning staff, you will constantly be proccing Concussed every time you weave. Yeah, and if you're on Werewolf, you're constantly going to be bleeding your opponent. It's a pretty straightforward set, and I can actually see it being useful on a lot of builds. And the final set that we're going to be talking about is called Silvers of the Null Arca. This is a medium trial set, and it's basically Reliquins if you turned it into a direct damage proc. So whenever you deal critical damage, you gain a stack of crystals. Whenever you get 3 stacks of these crystals, you launch those crystals at the last target that you damaged. This doesn't have to be singular either. If you did like an AoE attack and it crit on multiple people, the crystals will fly at each of the individuals that took critical damage from that attack, so it's also an AoE set. Yeah, I'm farming this set when it comes out, and then I'm putting it on Bowsork, and absolutely no one can stop me, okay? Oh, and also it got a random 37% damage buff, at some point in the middle of the PTS cycle, so, you know, there's that. And yeah, those are some of the fun new sets we're gonna be getting in Update 42. And one last thing I'll talk about real quick, we can customize the colors of our skills now. Look at this. I got a blue Vigor. Alright, look at that. Look how cool I am. Alright, and I got this purple Dawnbreaker. Look at that. Alright. And then also Elemental Susceptibility is purple now too. I don't know why, but it is. So deal with it. And that covers a lot of the important changes I want to talk about for Update 42. And now it's time to complain because, no, the PTS still isn't fixed and I have to sort through about 1,000 coffers in my inventory, going insane, trying to figure out where the last piece of gear is that I need to complete my build because I can't walk over to the reconstruction station and just reconstruct the piece that I don't have because I still don't have any of the item sets in there collected for some reason. And also my crowns aren't refreshing still, so I reckon by this point next year I'm not going to have any more crowns to test with on the PTS. So I'll probably just quit at that point because I'm not paying money to test on the PTS. Yeah, I also encountered a couple of other problems while I was testing on the PTS, but we need to wrap up this video, so if you're still watching the video by this point, then that means you care, and I want to offer you an invitation into our wonderful community. All you gotta do is click that subscribe button, and it's literally free. And I also do some streams here on YouTube, and if you want to catch those and you want to see me live, make sure you click the little bell button next to the subscribe button, so that way you can be notified of whenever I go live. So that way you can come ask me questions or do whatever it is that you want to do while we're live. And if you want to take your support a step further, I have a channel members available for you to join. There's a link in the description. You can click on that, and you get some really cool perks. These guys know how cool those perks are. Thank you so much, my channel members. And I also have a Discord that you can join if you want. We have the best memes, the best emojis, and the best people of all time. You are more than welcome to come join our shenanigans in our Discord. And yeah, thank you gamers for watching this video, and have a good night.